Hello everyone, Rarang here, the internet's most unknown music nerd. So right now it's past midnight on the 30th of July where I am in Southeast Asia, and that means the new Bleachers album is out. Now right now in the US it's 12 p.m. on the 29th, at least in New York. So I'm at least 12 hours ahead of those in the US to be able to hear this album. Now I've been waiting for this album for a long time. I got into Bleachers probably about 4 years ago, right before their previous album Gone Now came out, and I've been hooked onto them ever since. The first song I got into them was Roller Coaster, and that's when I also got into indie, alternative, and this side of music. So I was super excited for this new album, Take the Sadness Out of Saturday Night, to come out. The first single, Chinatown, came out at this point. It was last November, which is 9 months ago. 9 months ago, and even back then I thought it was overdue, so this is a long time in the making. So I'm very excited for this, and let's go in order. Here it is. Now this album consists of 10 tracks, and quite a bit of these have already been released, such as Chinatown, How Dare You Want More, Secret Life, Stop Making This Hurt, and 45. And some have already been performed live, such as 91. So most of this album is kind of already out in a way. And Strange Behavior is also another song that came from one of the original forms of Bleachers, a band called Steel Train, which the lead singer Jack Antonoff was also the lead singer of. So in a way that song has also been released, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit bummed that it's only 10 tracks because this was 4 years in the making, but I know it's gonna be good, so you know, it's worth it. So let's start with the first track, 91. Wow, that was a very new sound for Bleachers. Now that was my first time hearing it, and there was a little snippet of this song in one of the music videos, Chinatown, in the intro. Yeah, this was a very new sound for Bleachers. It was all strings. The vocals felt very compressed. Yeah, it felt like, you know, the music was like spinning around me, and yeah, I would give that a quick 9 out of 10. That was a very strong opening. I really like that song already. So next we have Chinatown. Now this song I have heard. In fact, I've heard many times. It was released in November, and I'm gonna be honest, the first time I heard it back in November, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. It wasn't the normal Bleachers I was expecting, because it felt kind of slow and, you know, a steady pace. And it also had Bruce Springsteen, which is not a bad thing. It's just that because of the pace, to say that it bored me was not accurate, but at the same time, it didn't keep me that engaged the whole song. So back when I first heard this song, I would have probably given it like a 6, and then I really grew to like this song like a lot, to the point where I would have this song on repeat sometimes, and now I would give it like maybe a 7, even though that doesn't seem like a big jump. 7 is a pretty good score for my music taste, because I tend to be kind of harsh when it comes to music. A lot of music I don't like, but this one I really grew into. So yeah, I would rate this Chinatown a 7. Next, How Dare You Want More. Now I dig this song. It's upbeat, and the intro is not what I expected, because the first time I actually heard this song was their performance on Jimmy Fallon of this song before this song was actually released. That didn't have this intro. So this song was more, it went back to 91 where it had the more compressed vocals, but at the same time this one is much more upbeat and like gets your head bobbing. There's a big contrast between the instruments themselves and the vocals. Like the vocals really stand out in this one, and not to mention the solo, like the battle between the guitar and the sax. That was a really nice addition, though it was a bit more quiet than I would like it to be, that particular part. But aside from that, I really like this song. I would also give this one a 7. 7 is like my standard for a good song. So yeah, next is Big Life. I have not heard this one yet. That was something. Yeah, that stands out quite a bit. I know that one of the aims with this album was to make it sound more live, and that probably sounded the most live of the song so far. Like the singing style felt like he was singing through a live microphone in like medium-sized venue in like the 70s. It also sounded very retro, like I was again in a live venue listening to this, live. And there's a lot of sounds. You know those ad-libs that many artists do that are just sounds? Like this one had ooh layered on top of each other. Yeah, there was a lot going on in this one. I don't know, I'd probably have to give this one many more listens to get into it. For me right now, it's an interesting song and also simple. I didn't really notice that much in terms of songwriting, at least compared to other Bleacher songs. But yeah, that one really stood out. Right now, I will have to give that a 6. It's interesting, but is it a song I would put on repeat? Not yet. Again, these are first impressions, so take that with a pinch of salt. Next song, Secret Life, featuring Lana Del Rey. Now, I haven't heard this song yet either, and it's another song with the word life in it. But this song was released like just yesterday, a day before the album came out. But I decided not to listen to it so that I can listen to the rest of the album, because at that point it will feel like I'd listened to most of the album without the album having coming out yet. So I wanted to save some. So yeah, this will be my first time listening to Secret Life featuring Lana Del Rey. Wow, first ballad. That was probably the most ballad-like song that Bleachers have ever released. Like typical ballad style. This also sounded very retro, but in a different way than the previous song. This sounded retro, like studio retro, but like David Bowie or like Jackson 5 kind of retro from that era, Especially with the intro when it was very stereo, like very forced stereo. And the quality of the production as well made it sound like it was recorded exactly in the 70s. One thing I've noticed about this album, I think this is the only other feature besides Bruce Springsteen. In this album, both with Bruce Springsteen's feature and Lana Del Rey's feature, their features are very subtle. Like for example, Bruce Springsteen only sings the chorus of Chinatown, and that's also along with Jack himself. Same with Lana Del Rey, she's only a background vocal in the song. And if we look back to Bleacher's previous album, Gone Now, Don't Take the Money had Lorde in the background as well. That's not something that you often see, where the featured artist is a big artist but only sings the background part. You don't see that much. You have seen it before, for example with Michael Jackson singing a couple background vocals for I forgot who. But again, it's very subtle, and I find that pretty interesting. The song itself is a very typical ballad. In terms of the song, I would have to probably give it a 5. But again, these are just first impressions, because it's not like luring me to keep it on repeat. Unlike 91, I want to hear 91 again. But it's not a bad song per se. And again, these are first impressions. And with anything Bleachers related, anything I once didn't like, I would get into. For example, their song Goodbye from their previous album. I hated it when I first heard it, but I ended up really liking it. So yeah, next song, Stop Making This Hurt. Yeah, let's hear it. Now this song is one of those songs where at first I thought it was kind of average, but now I really like it. Like it was only these past few days where I started listening to this on repeat, whereas when it first came out I thought, oh, this is like a typical Bleachers Gone Now era song, so I wouldn't listen to it that much. Lately I've been listening to it more. This is one of those songs that fits perfectly in a movie. The melody is super strong, the chorus is big. The only part about it that kind of falls behind, in my opinion, is maybe the bridge. The bridge felt a little okay, but aside from that, I really dig the song. I would probably give this song again I'll give this one a 7.5. Yeah, this is better than Chinatown and How Dare You Want More, in my opinion. So I'll give this one a 7.5. And the music video too, I really like, especially with the choreography and all that. So the next song is Don't Go Dark. I've not heard this song yet, so let's give it a try. I think of all the songs that I hadn't heard before today from this album so far, I think this one is the overall best song so far that I hadn't heard before today. Now again, 91 was super impressive, but as a whole song, I felt like this has to take the crown. Which will be weird because I did award 91 a 9 out of 10. And I'm thinking of awarding this an 8 out of 10. But this in many ways is better than 91. 91 just impressed me in terms of the new sound. But I really like this one. Again, this is another very retro sounding song. But not from the 60s or 70s. This time it felt very clearly 80s. With the synths covering the background, the tone of the voice. I don't know, I really liked it. This particular song was teased, I think, 2 years ago in the Bleachers remix album, Terrible Thrills Volume 3. It was at the very end of one of the tracks and it was kind of muffled, but like you could hear the This song has been recorded for at least 2 years. Now this is probably not the same take, not the same recording or anything, but still, the structure of the chords was still there way back when. Yeah, I really like this song. I have to give this at least an 8. I'll give it an 8 for now, but I think it will climb up my rankings later. So yeah, that was Don't Go Dark. Next, 45. Now 45 deserves a lot more attention. This was one of the first 2 songs that was released back in November alongside Chinatown, and it's so good. Like before this album was released today, this was probably my favorite single of the bunch that had already been released. I like this song better than Chinatown, How Dare You Want More, Stop Making This Hurt, and I liked it from the beginning and I like it today. I never got bored of this. It's straight acoustic, doesn't sound like retro this, retro that. It just sounds like a nice acoustic tune. I really like the song. This is such a wholesome song. It's not overpowering, which is a huge contrast to the previous song, which felt like it had a million instruments in it. So 45 easily gets a 9 out of 10, which is very big for me. 45 cannot be beat. Something I did notice is that this album has 2 songs that are just numbers, that are just 2-digit numbers, 91 and 45, which is kind of odd if you ask me. I wouldn't have made that decision to at least name 2 songs like that, knowing that there's another song that's a 2-digit number. So that's interesting. I just wanted to point it out. Now the next song I'm super excited for. It's called Strange Behavior, and after reading the lyrics for this song, I noticed that it's the exact same song of a Steel Train song that was released 10 years ago that I mentioned earlier. A song called Behavior from the album Steel Train. Now I had a Steel Train like era about 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, where I would listen to that one Steel Train album, the 2010 album, on repeat, and this song was a part of the album. And to see that Jack Antonoff made a Bleachers version of it is very exciting to me. I want to see how this differs to the 10-year-old version. So yeah, let's see. Wow, that was probably that might be my favorite so far. Wow, that had the best production. At least I had the best production so far. I can say that easily. And that was such a different version than the version that was released 10 years ago. Wow, I did not expect that. I thought it would just be a remake of the version 10 years ago. But it was more than a remake. It was like a reimagining. It was all acoustic, no drums at all. The previous version had a lot of drums. And you know, the emotions in this from both the production and the vocals. Wow, I'm gonna listen to this one on repeat. Wow, yeah. I really like this one. I have to give this 8.5. I might have to reduce my rating for 91. This gets an 8.5. 91 gets an 8. Rewind that. Okay, so last song. What Would I Do With All This Faith? Let's go. I have not heard this song either. That was a nice way to end off an album. It wasn't overpowering. It was nice and slow, but again, not too slow. Yeah, it seems like a movie credits kind of song, which, you know, is appropriate because it was the ending of this album. I like the production. Maybe the intro was maybe I was waiting a bit during the intro, like what would happen next, because it was a very long instrumental part. But once the acoustics came in, ooh, it sounded nice. I would probably have to give this maybe a 6 to begin with. Maybe just for now. I need to hear it a couple more times. Not a bad song. But overall, this album, very nice. Like, you can tell the past 3 songs were more toned down compared to like the first half of the album, or everything before the last 3 songs, except for Secret Life, that ballad with Lana Del Rey. But one thing I did notice is that there are less big anthemic, like, you know, loud songs like I Want to Get Better or Don't Take the Money or Everybody Lost Somebody. The equivalent to that in this album I would say would be Stop Making This Hurt and Don't Go Dark. But I thought there would be more, if I'm being honest. And another interesting thing that I noticed is that there's no reprise. Like in Bleachers' first 2 albums, by the way, this is their 3rd album. In their first 2 albums, there was the second last song always had a reprise called I'm Ready to Move On. This one didn't. And I thought it would be a tradition that every second last song of an album would have that reprise. But it was interesting that this one didn't. But yeah, this was a very good album. There are a couple that I really want to listen to on repeat, such as Don't Go Dark and Strange Behavior. But yeah, I kind of wish this whole album just dropped at once instead of me having heard half of the album before. But you know, now that it's all out, it's nice. So yeah, that was my review. As an album, I'll probably give this a 7 out of 10 for first impression. Now keep that in mind, this is first impressions. My opinion on the albums always change over time, probably for the better. And yeah, Bleachers 3 approved. One thing though, I do wish it had a different album cover. I'm not the biggest fan of it, and I know there are other limited edition album covers, but none of them are on streaming services. So yeah, that's a shame, because there was one of him in a suit with a red background, which really looked nice in my opinion, and one of him sitting down holding glasses. I think that would have been the perfect album cover for the default version of the album. But all is good, and so is the album. Have a listen.